What you reporting?
We got someone or something crawling around out here.
Did you see what it was? Was it a person or an animal or?
I can't tell. All I know is that my central light came on and I just happened to glimpse and see this thing running across the yard. A good-sized man or something looks like a man. I don't know what it was, just that it ran across the yard.
Okay. You've had problems in the neighborhood before?
Yeah, my dog was killed here just recently. I don't know what it was, whatever it is, it's running. I couldn't catch it if I was going to chase it, or whatever it was that was standing up. I'm out here looking through the window now and I don't see anything. I don't want to go outside. Jesus Christ, you better.
Sir?
Theo,
Hello?
get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Do you see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Okay, hang on.
He's right.
Is he in your yard, sir?
Yeah, God, he's big.
Okay, what's he doing in your yard?
He's looking at me.
Oh, and the guy is on foot.
I don't know what, it's a big, real big person, that's all I can say.
Okay, but it is a person.
Yeah, I'd say it was a person, somebody really big. But he's all in black.
Is he a black male or a white male? Did you actually see with it, or was he just wearing black?
He's all black and he's big. He is big.
Hello, everyone, from the remote jungles of Clinton Falls, Indiana. This is Larry Battson. Friday night, it is Friday night, 10 o'clock, as we talk all Bigfoot around the world. It's going to be an exciting night. It always is. Lots of great listeners. Hello, Carrie and Perry Cole. Nice to have you with us tonight. Alan Edward Gaines joined us as well. Lee from Kentucky, along with his wife Jennifer, is with us on Friday. Hope everyone had a great day. I had a fantastic day. I have to absolutely tell you that. I want to remind everyone that we have our noon every day, Monday through Friday, though I will not be on Monday because I have to do a post-op with my doctor. Tell him, make sure that he's going to tell me I'm okay. So anyway, so we're going to be doing that. And so Monday we will not have the 3 o'clock animal art program. I almost called it a class. It is kind of a class. Yeah, it's kind of a class. We draw animals. Because I'm a wildlife educator. We draw animals. We learn about animals. It's fun. 3 o'clock. So if the kids are getting too hot, because it's been brutally hot, they need to get out of the weather. Come inside at 3 o'clock and turn us up on Facebook Live, and we'll draw animals together. And then, of course, on Wednesday night, Animal Stories. We've been 41 years traveling across this great country of ours, doing lectures with our collection of wild animals. We have a couple stories or two. We do that on Wednesday nights. And then, of course, tonight, talking all Bigfoot. I have some wonderful relatives. In fact, we got a package from Minnesota and from the Lumens, yes. And they went on a trip out west, and they went they sent me all this fantastic Bigfoot stuff that I want to share with you tonight. Now, I really haven't had a chance to look at it because my wife hid it from me. So now's my chance. There's only one thing I really had a chance to look at, and we'll see that here in a moment. But it's great stuff I've never seen before. And I know all the Sasquatch people out there. Of course, Alan Edward Gaines is joining us from North Carolina. Check these out now. Look at these. Bigfoot socks. What about that deal? Huh? Isn't that amazing? Oh my gosh, Bigfoot socks. I know you all want some. Well, you can't have these. From Glacier Park? Yes. So that was very cool. Bigfoot socks. Love them already. Yeah. Hello, William. I'm doing great tonight. I hope you're doing well too. Me and William are, what do you call it? We've been dealing with stuff health-wise, so we're health buddies. Yeah, that's what we are. We're health buddies. William from Newcastle. Now look at this. For all those that like to go squatching and you need all the right equipment to do so. Oh man, too cool. Look. Oh my God. I'll show you. Hold on. Oh, Michael. A coolie. Yeah. for your beverage when you're out there looking for the guy. Gone squatching. What about that deal? I'm telling you, I've never seen that before. Care Cooler. Wow, that is just beyond cool. I'm telling you, you're all jealous. Well, you can be jealous if you want, but you know, I'm gonna I'm gonna show you. Yeah, I like cooler, Bigfoot cooler. You guys have that, huh? Do you? Do you? Out there lurking around in the woods. What else we got in there? Oh, this is, let's see here. Box is so full. It's got stuff in it. Oh, and this is cool. This is cool too. This is from Glacier National Park. Warning, Bigfoot area. Yeah, magnet. Yeah, that's cool. I know. Yeah, sure. Gosh, why am I so lucky? Jacob and Gwen sent me wonderful get well messages too. They did. Oh, and now you know what? If this is what I think it is, this is a collector's item now, or has become a collector's item. Yeah, Jacob and Gwen, they sent me get well cards, and I'm feeling much better. The squad has arrived, Michael says. Good deal. Michael, we're showing you all my stuff I got from the Lumen family when they went out west. I believe this is a collector's item because I've heard that. People have told me this. What about that deal? A Bigfoot action figure. I'm not going to take it out of the box. I've watched The Big Bang Theory, and I know that it's worth more in the box. But I love it anyway, even though I can't touch it. Isn't that cool? My gosh. Why are we so lucky today? And drop the box. Another Beyond Cool. Check this out. Oh, wait a minute. I haven't taken off any of the tags yet. I don't like to take the tags off. But look at that. Oh, yeah. Patterson Giblin, Patty. Except we're close. I might need some surgical alteration, as you know, with the chest area. But yeah, this is very, very cool. I'll show you. Michael just popped in, so I'll show you all again. And cool Glacier National Park, Bigfoot magnets. I love this stuff. I'll put it back in my box so the baboon doesn't have access to it. And then for those that like a beverage while you're out on the hunt, the coolie. Yeah, it's very cool. Very, very cool. I love this already. And the socks. Bigfoot socks. Of course, this will be a winter wear right now with 90-degree temperatures. But look at those socks. Isn't that cool? Look at them. There we go. Look at the socks. I got the Bigfoot socks and everything, and it's beyond cool. And one of the coolest ones I've ever seen. Now, hold on. Get all wires out of the way. You got too many wires over there they wanted to get. Look, Bigfoot saw me, but nobody believes him. What about that shirt? Huh? Wow. And then it has Oregon. I'm just smitten. I've never used that word before. Thank you all very much from Minnesota, the Lumens. And thank you, Jacob and Gwen, for the wonderful cards, the Get Well cards that you sent. I love them. I love them. And thank you very, very much. As always, co-host of tonight's broadcast, the Yeti, North America's greatest drinking device. Keep that beverage cold for for weeks and weeks and weeks. The Yeti. That's right. And as always, and we've had several people get theirs. Let me catch up here. Ben says, I still remember all your school visits at Granville Wells 20 years ago. Loved hearing about all the animals. Well, thank you, Ben. You need to tune in Wednesday nights at 9:30, and we'll talk about that. Yeah. Hey, Shannon, y'all from hi, hi, y'all from Arkansas. Hope everybody has a good day. We're having a great day. You see all my stuff. Michael, hi, Larry, hi, Loretta. Michael says he needs one. The T-shirt is. Let me show you. The T-shirt is just cool. T-shirt is just beyond cool. This guy's trying to stand up. It's not so cool. See? Yes. What makes it the coolest? Oregon, right there. Yeah. That's the coolest. And once again, thank you to the Lumens. I want to show you this before we get going tonight. Have you got yours yet? Have you got yours? Camera guy, where'd you go? Oh, I know what happened. Yeah, our Sasquatch print. This one is available. Just message me through Facebook and I'll tell you how you can be an owner of one. Absolutely. And of course, one everyone seems to like except the young children. I feel like something watching. It feels like something watching. My goodness. Whoa. And she is here tonight. Annabelle's checking in. She loves her new gear. Really enjoyed the stories on Footer's Forum. We listened to them tonight on our Bigfoot hunt. Fantastic. Footer's Forum. Can't forget. That's our Facebook webpage or Facebook page. Footer's Forum. We post lots of stuff on there. I try to post really great stuff. So if you go on Footer's Forum, be ready to spend an hour or so because we put on some fantastic historical videos that have been put together by Todd Prescott from Canada. And Todd is, well, he's basically John Green's historian. He's the one that went in and took all the material and they put it on the computer. They put it in a database. It's fantastic. And he's releasing these amazing videos, historical videos. Ones that when this all started in the 50s, when it really started in the 50s, after Jerry Crew found that track around his road grading equipment, and that picture was taken of him holding that track he had made, that plaster cast, that's when it kicked off, and that's when guys like John Green, and it's all there. So go to Footer's Forum, watch the videos. So there's some amazing videos. We're just so happy we're able to share them. We try to just put stuff with historical content. That's what we try to do with the Sasquatch Bigfoot legend. So we hope you enjoy that stuff. And Lori says, I have both of those prints and they are made. Well, thank you, Lori. Lori Russell joins us, and thank you for your service, young lady. But it's a nice night here tonight in Indiana. It's starting to cool off. Michael asked, how long have you been collecting Bigfoot collectibles? Oh, I don't know. They just kind of happen. People can't figure out what to get me for Christmas or my birthday. That's the truth. And they know my interest in this subject. So that's what I end up with. And it's a true joy. And I've got 2 or 3 large boxes with stuff in them that I've collected with Bigfoot, as well as some of the stuff I've collected, all my research and reports that I've collected. I have them stored away in boxes, and one day I'm going to dig them all out. We're going to compile them all together, and there is a book. There definitely is a book, especially with the reports from Conneaut, Ohio, the northeastern part of the state. There is a book there. Hello, Abe. Nice to have you with us tonight. Here on Talking All Bigfoot, this is Larry Battson, from ones I've never met before. But that Conneaut, Ohio, man. And I had a chance to meet the gentleman. Gosh, I wish I could remember his last name. I think his first name was Sam, and he was from Pennsylvania, outside of Pittsburgh. And he would go up and he had several experiences in the Chestnut Ridge area. And then there was Bob France, who has passed away, who I used to see when I would go to Pittsburgh and do the outdoor show there. We set up the Bigfoot exhibit a couple times and had an opportunity to meet Dr. Paul Johnson, and he stopped by. He's quite the Bigfoot researcher, and he's he's a scientist, which makes it even better. So we had the chance to talk with him. But when I go back to Bob France, Loretta says, would like to read that book. Yeah, me too. I would like to read it. But with Bob France, he was a collector of minerals, and he would go, and that's how his experiences with the Bigfoot Sasquatch began. He'd go on, and he collected reptiles too, if my memory is correct. And he always had the feeling when they would camp out, and he would go with his son, that when they'd leave their campsite and go out and collect and, just walk amongst Mother Nature. I mean, that was what a great life that boy had. His dad would do things like that on the weekend. That's when he discovered the Sasquatch. It wasn't like he started off being interested in Sasquatch and then said, I'm going to go look for one. No. He was interested in nature. He was interested in the outdoors. And he told me, he said, Larry, he said, I was by my camp, just a few feet away, and I could feel something, I could feel like something was watching me. And I looked up, and just a few feet away, and he says, I can't believe how quietly it had walked up that close. And he says, and I kind of looked up, because I was looking for, he was looking for herbs and, mushrooms and, different stuff, rocks. He collected rocks too. So when he walked through the woods, he spent a lot of time looking at the ground. Well, he looks up, and there it is. It's about 8 feet away from him, and it's about 8 feet tall. And he sees this thing, and he can't believe it. He just stands there, and the thing just stood there and stared at him. Longest time. Then he realized, he says, I've got a camera. Got the strap hanging around my neck. My camera's right there on my stomach. I said, if I'm real slick about this, I'm going to get a picture of it. He said, the moment he looked down at that camera and he looked back up, I was gone. Didn't hear a thing. Nothing. He didn't even hear it take off through the woods. He just said, Larry, I looked down at my camera, was getting ready to push the button, snap the picture, and I looked back up. It was gone, like it'd never been there. And I didn't hear it leave. He said later that night, though, when we were around our campfire, we could hear it. We could hear the howls. We could hear these eerie howls, these screams. And a gut feeling told him what he saw earlier that day was making those sounds for a moment. And then he heard the same sounds clear in the other direction. And those sounds just seemed to bounce back and forth, back and forth. But he said it was strange because I wasn't really afraid. Because I thought, earlier in that day, if that thing would have wanted to do me harm, it had the perfect opportunity. There would have been no problem. But it left. I honestly believe, there's two things I believe. For one thing, I know it's a fact. They are totally unpredictable. Totally unpredictable. That's when I watched this silliness on television where they had mapped out where it should be that time of the year. No way. No. You're not going to map out. I don't care what kind of a database you have with your computer that you can put in. Well, we put in, here's where all the sightings occurred. And then we can make a prediction of where it'll be at a certain time of the year. No way. Who are you talking to? It's an assault on one's intelligence. Because, when you think about it, heavy hitters have gone after looking for these things and never saw one. John Green never saw one. He spent so much time in the woods. The man would hop in an airplane and fly 200-300 miles at the drop of the hat to go look at some footprints. I asked him that one time. I said, do you get discouraged that you've never seen one as much time as you spend in the woods? He says, not really. He says, because if I do see one, then I'm with the eyewitnesses. I'm not with the researchers anymore. He said, and I found the people that have actually seen it, they seem to be more likely to believe someone's story because they've seen it. They have, even if it was just for a few moments. I really believe this. People gather so much knowledge in a few moments from seeing these things. First of all, obviously the size of it. And then they can look at this thing. They can realize, it's like watching a football game and you can see the players that are like, my God, look at that guy. Well, that's what they think. Just multiply it times 10. They see this. They can see it looks very powerful. Doesn't take a genius for that. But they are so unpredictable. Their minds are so adapt to the wild. They are so focused. So focused. Oh, animals basically are, they don't get led astray like we do. They only do things for one reason. For survival. The Sasquatch, every moment of his life, his total thoughts are survival for him and the others he's with. Whether you call it a troop, a tribe. That's why when you look at the Battson video, and I've said this before, that it stays right out in the open. Right out in the open. And if any moment when you first see it in that video and it's jumping, you can see that the video is so jumpy because Roger Patterson wasn't a photographer. Roger Patterson wasn't a costume maker either. And it looks so jittery, and then all of a sudden he gets it firm. Why did it go that way? I honestly believe it's just like the injured bird trick. Lead the predator away from the young ones. Lead Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin away from the two others that are hidden in the forest. Why do I say two? Because Bob had told me they'd found 3 sizes of footprints. 3. Let's see here. Loretta says, I think it didn't like him taking its picture. Let him know it, maybe. Well, it knew what he was up to, I guess, huh? Yeah, he just took off. And then later that night, I think the howls that they heard was a communication between 2 of them. Because they have to have plans when they're in search of food. You know what I'm saying? There has to be, if 2 of them are working together and they're stalking a deer per se, then they have to have they have methods, communication methods, and also telepathy. We have telepathy. We ignore it. We all have the ability to know what someone else is thinking by just looking at, if you know them well. And the longer you spend in the forest, the keener your senses will become. Your sense of smell, your sense of hearing, your sense of eyesight. That even a breeze, you can feel and sense whatever's in the forest. And that's exactly what the Sasquatch does. When you walk into the forest, it knows exactly what your plans are. It knows what a gun looks like. It knows what they smell like. He knows camouflage. That means you're a hunter. I've suggested to more than one research group, I said, don't wear the camo in the woods. Wear the brightest colored Hawaiian shirt you can find. See what happens. Michael, have you ever heard of the Bigfoot in Vietnam? They are known as the rock apes. Some troops had encounters with them. I have heard about them. And that's quite fascinating. Several soldiers that come back from Vietnam have reported seeing Sasquatches or subspecies of the Sasquatch in Vietnam when they were fighting in combat. Also, the soldiers in Iran, Iraq, and Afghanistan that fought in the mountains have reported seeing something very similar to that we know as a Sasquatch. Except what I've read about that is that they're very aggressive. Very aggressive. I think myself, all animals have different personalities. So one would be aggressive, one would not be aggressive, obviously. We all have different personalities. All animals have different personalities, you know. Every tiger that I've worked with and had, they all have different personalities. This baboon that we work with every day, 24/7, has a different personality than other baboons. We had a baboon once. If you had your shirt off, it would not touch you. Ooh, couldn't imagine touching you without a shirt on. And this one, this female, this Elizabeth, she'll jump right. She doesn't care. Completely different personalities. And the Sasquatch is the same way. I can remember this young man in Morgan Monroe State Forest that had the house on Low Gap Road. And if you're familiar with Morgan Monroe State Forest, Low Gap Road runs right along the edge of the forest. And he had Sasquatches around. And he said there was two that would show up that he could hear around his house in the woods, around the garage and so forth. And he didn't really mind those. No. Because they didn't ever seem to bring any problems. But he said there was one that if he was in the woods, especially in the wintertime, and he found a 21-inch footprint, he knew that one was in town. That one was in the area. And he said, to tell you the truth, Larry, I would be scared to death to be in the woods when this thing was around. Be scared to death. Ben Williams, is there an alpha in their group? Well, we would assume there would be, Ben. I mean, that's normal behavior for every primate and human group. And, you know, we all have groups of our own. There's alphas there. And, of course, in the primate world, you're a great ape. So even though this isn't an ape, I don't think, I'm dead certain. The orangutans, they don't really have an alpha per se. But the gorillas and the chimpanzees do, of course. So I would assume the Sasquatch has one that you would call an alpha. Wow, 21 inches, that's a big guy. Oh, that's a huge one. Yes. Hello, Abe. Why do Bigfoots make a rock circle formation? Does the circle stand for something spiritual, or does it possibly symbolize the world? We don't know, Abe. And anybody that tells you they do know, they're not being truthful with you. We don't know. And until we can't say for sure, we really cannot say for sure that they did that. Not unless someone has actually witnessed a Sasquatch creating a rock circle. Till someone says that to me, um, we would, and it's like the stick structures. I haven't spoken with anyone that has observed a Sasquatch building one of those. Now, I had one stick circle that I had, and a guy emailed me. He said, well, we used to do that turkey hunting. It'd be about this high. We just make a circle of sticks and we get down low, and that was our turkey blind. That makes perfect sense. Absolutely does. Yeah, man, I don't know. Well, maybe. Be a good thing for the shoe manufacturers. This question, do you think Bigfoot wears big shoes? Matt, they don't have to. Yeah, they don't have to. They're a tough hombre. Ask Austin Lee. He was on here a few weeks. He might show up again tonight. We might see him. That'd be great. But he was hunting in Bloomington, and he was watching a doe, obviously a female deer, and through his rifle scope, and he watched one bolt out of the undercover and punched the deer in the side. And as soon as it fell to the ground, he grabbed it by its legs, beat it up against a tree, and killed it pretty much instantly, and tucked it underneath his arm and walked off with it. And Austin had been hunting in that area for a long time, never seen anything, didn't even believe in the Sasquatch Bigfoot legend, didn't even know. Does now. he most definitely does now. Matt is just a comedian tonight. Man, you ought to move to Las Vegas. Is Bigfoot taking COVID seriously and wearing his mask? No, but you should. No. They keep their distance. But really, you should move to Las Vegas. That'd be a good place. When we were talking the other day, last Friday, and by the way, we're here every Friday, 10 o'clock. And, I hear about all these reports. And because I got all this cool stuff from my family up in Minnesota, and they'd been to Oregon, they'd been to Washington. I thought about my buddy in Washington, and I've talked about him quite a bit. And he's got a cabin 5 miles south of the Canadian border. And he has, in his forest around him, a population of Sasquatches, Bigfoot. And it's taken over his life. Basically taken over his life. He gets up there every weekend that he can. And they look, he spends a lot of time in the forest. One of the things he was talking to me about, which I found fascinating, was they take these glow sticks. They'd pop those glow sticks. And they'd hang them from tree branches, 8, 9 foot up. Too high up for a raccoon. And then they would just sit there in the dark for hours and hours. They'd be sitting there in the dark. And I could hear the footsteps. And they'd watch those glow sticks. And those glow sticks would get lifted up off the branches. And they'd watch them just float through the woods about 7, 8 foot up. The Sasquatches would carry them off. He said, I felt after a while, I think they got to know me because we'd have to wait less time. You know, the first time it happened, we were just on a hunch. We had a theory. Let's hang a glow stick from a tree limb. See if anything happens. Get something's curiosity. Well, it did. They sat there for a long time. That took a lot of patience. He says every time we do it, they'd come a little quicker. Jim Weiser, nice to have you along with us, Jim. Hey, Larry, I'm in Cherry Log, Georgia, and I'm going to the Bigfoot Museum tomorrow. I love listening to you on Friday. Well, thank you, Jim. Have fun at the Bigfoot Museum. We're looking at some of the stuff. Is Annabelle still there? I want to show Annabelle my t-shirt that I got. Stand up here. Check this t-shirt out. Bigfoot saw me, but nobody believes him. And like I said, the coolest part, Oregon. Yeah. I know you all want one now. You have to go to Oregon. No. But, yeah. Cody Herring. Cody Herring is the animal, the beast behind Facebook's Footers Forum. And he helps me so much with our program that we have here on Friday nights. From a listener in a group, saw a guy point out that the tree crosses are for directions. He used Google Maps for his theory ideas. Okay. Jacqueline. Hello, Jacqueline. Now I'm tempted to go try it. Glow stick time. Love that shirt. I love it too. Oh, let me show you something else here. In case you guys weren't here. Check these out, Annabelle. I got a pair of Bigfoot socks. What about that deal? Huh? Yes, sirree. Bigfoot socks. From, I think that from Glacier National Park. You know, I heard that report from Glacier, and they were on a wolf count, and the head ranger at Glacier, they were in a tent one morning on this wolf count in the wintertime. That's when they do that sort of thing. And they heard a howl come out of the forest, and the head ranger says, I've been in Glacier my entire life. I've never heard of something like that before. Load your gun. That's what they said. Look at this. That's cool too. I don't know. My Bigfoot collectibles. It's fun. Oh yeah. Many times when I set up and do a program at a library, I bring along everything. It's like a mobile museum. and it's a mobile museum of Bigfoot stuff that we do. Yeah. Annabelle says she loves it and it's awesome. Well, thank you very much, Annabelle, because your opinion matters a lot to me. It does. Annabelle's going to be the future of Bigfoot research. She's going to be in first grade, and she already wants to be an anthropologist, and her main interest is Bigfoot. Annabelle and her brother have on their Bigfoot PJs. Now, if you want to see the Bigfoot PJs, go to Footers Forum, and her brother are modeling them, and they're pretty awesome. Now they want socks like yours. Well, I'll look who the manufacturer is, and I'm sure through the internet one can find them fairly easily, I imagine. So yeah, you need some socks like that, Annabelle, especially with your PJs. And as always, we are my co-host, the Yeti, North America's greatest drinking device, and tonight we are hosting lemonade, my favorite summertime beverage. It is. It absolutely is. I love this lemonade. You know, lemonade and potato salad, I'm happy. You can have anything else you want with your picnic, but lemonade and potato salad, that's me. Many people have asked me about the Ohio Bigfoot Conference. Don't ask me. I know nothing. We're scheduled to go there August the 15th and speak. And I know a lot of friends from Indiana and Pennsylvania and New York are going to come down and say hey. So I'll be there speaking if it happens. So I haven't heard anything. So I don't know. What I have heard about, though, is this friend of mine in Washington they'd hang the glow sticks from the branches, and the Sasquatches would come in and pick them up and carry them off. Now, he also made a big mistake one time because he had a friend, and I've relayed this particular incident. Chris says, do you have any history on the Cherokee Suki-Lu? No, but I will. If I find my writing device, I'll write that down and make myself note. I assume, what you get for assuming, most of your Native Americans realize that the Sasquatch, the Bigfoot, was just part of the wild. It was just like the wolf, the deer, the bear, the moose. It's just part of the wild. It's another animal that exists, except they considered them highly sacred. And many of the different tribes would have different names for them. And that's it. Just like the one story that I remember so much from my friend in Washington was that there's an Indian reservation not too far from him up at his cabin. And they had, let me check up here. Bigfoot of the Blue Ridge Mountains. Okay, that explains it. All right, I thought so. Because I'd heard that name before. Blue Ridge Mountains, one of the most beautiful places anywhere. I remember going through those mountains. I was thinking to myself when I did, I thought, my gosh, look at this. Look at this. Look at this territory. I mean, it is heavy timber up and down. Perfect habitat. You know why? Because a Sasquatch can move through heavy timber and serious ups and downs with amazing speed. We just kind of lumber through it. So it's like, it says Ashe County, North Carolina. What was the last encounters? I'm writing this stuff down. Ashe County, North Carolina. But yeah, because, and all of your tribes, they have one particular person that is the, well, he's kind of like the tribal elder, and his responsibilities are Sasquatch incidents. And the reason I know this is because of my friend in Washington who told me about 3 young men that had been killed while running salmon nets. And they assumed it was a Sasquatch. That's why they had, and because of the reservation, you know, it's their world, okay? Law enforcement doesn't come in. And it's their world. So they had the elders look for those young men because they had decided when they went to run those salmon nets, if they weren't back that night, something serious has happened. Now, of course, they're black bears, mountain lion, but, you know, black bears, I have black bears. They're big chickens, okay? Now, if you get a female and cubs, that's a whole different deal. But on a whole, if the bear knows you're coming, he's out of there. He's not waiting for a confrontation. He's gone. That's why when they hunt bears, they either have to bait them or use dogs. Because if you just walk through the forest with your gun like Elmer Fudd and you're going to shoot you a bear, it's not going to happen. Very rare. Very, very rare. Michael says, do you think Siri would know how many names Bigfoot has? Siri? I don't know. I don't know. She might. There's a bunch. I know there's a lot of them. I do not know all of them. I don't know, or pretend to. But yeah, there's a bunch. Well, anyway, we're getting back to this Native American incident that happened in Washington. So they went to look for these three men, and they found them, and they'd all been killed, and they'd been horribly mutilated. And they knew right away what was responsible for it, because what else would pile huge rocks on top of someone? I mean, it looks basically how he was killed. Because he was hit with huge rocks, and there's a pile of them, and it was a mess. And one was grabbed by the ankles and beaten up against a tree. And because they would find brain tissue in all the trees around the body, that what was left of it. Steve Hiles. Hello, Steve. Nice to have you with us tonight. On Facebook Live on a Friday night. Is your opinion, what is the most proven evidence of a Bigfoot? Well, I can think of offhand first of all, obviously, the Patterson-Gimlin film. Because it has never ever been proven to be a hoax, because it wasn't. That's it. That's what it was. It was a Sasquatch. It was a Bigfoot. And there we have it on film. And I've always said that if Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin had doctor in front of their names, it would have been done. But because they were just a couple of cowboys from Yakima, Washington, scientists wasn't gonna believe it. They weren't gonna swallow it. That's one of the greatest Bigfoot evidence. The second was the testimony of Yellowstone Park Ranger Bob Jackson. On patrol, he was for 31 years, he patrolled the most remote area of Yellowstone by himself, hunting poachers, men with guns. He arrested more poachers than all of the rangers combined in Yellowstone. And he talked about being on patrol one day and actually witnessing a Sasquatch. As he put it, he says it wasn't incredibly tall. He says it's maybe a little taller than I am. I'm a little, about 6'2", 6'3". But it was covered with long black hair or fur. Walked bipedal, 2 legs. And he watched it stalk a deer. From Aspen Grove to Aspen Grove. He watched it. And then when he retired, that's when he talked about it, because he didn't talk about it till when he did retire. So I've always thought that his testimony, and if you've ever heard him talk about it, in fact, I did an interview with Bob Jackson, and the particular part of that interview, when he talks about Bigfoot, and he flat says, he says they're very rare. He talked about all the trail crews and so forth that would find tracks around deboned elk carcasses, or these howls, these screams that he would hear come out of the mountains. It sounded like 1,000 elk going to their death. His testimony alone, you should be able to take to a court of law. And if you're going into a particular area that you know there are Sasquatches and you want to have them protected, I would think his testimony would have to be number one. And that's, to me, is one of the greatest things we've gotten as far as Bigfoot evidence. And of course, when you talk to Dr. Meldrum, there's so many tracks that have been found. Now, sure, I know. The guy builds him some tracks and lays them down. Well, we know that's happened because of Ray Wallace admitted it on his deathbed. but not in the middle of nowhere. Not, where nobody would think, well, let's leave some tracks here and somebody will find them and scare them. No, not at all. No. So the tracks, and it is either because of the thousands of sightings that have occurred, and I know there are people on here right now that have seen them. The thousands of sightings, it would have to be either the greatest hoax ever pulled off or the greatest scientific find that man may have ever uncovered. Could be number one. Probably is. Jacqueline, are there no way all these tribes were lying? Well, I know. She says there are no way all these tribes were lying. That's absolutely correct. They said the same thing about the mountain gorilla. In the early 1900s, the people that lived up there talked about the mountain gorilla. The scientists, no, there's nothing like that lives up there. Well, guess what? They went up there, and guess what they found out? There's something up there. The gorillas live there. And now even tourism has basically saved the mountain gorillas of Africa because they get tourists in there and keep the criminal element out and so forth. And there's many times I've heard that these tourist groups have gone in there and not seen a gorilla. They knew they were there, but they didn't see them. Here's Shannon Johnson. She's on her game tonight. She says Yeren, Gugu, Almas, Oku, Anasa, Array. Or my glasses are the worst. Wendigo, Duglai, Chukahura, Orang, Bendak, just to name a few. Yeah. So thank you, Shannon. That was fantastic. She's got them all named down here, or at least the majority of them. But yeah. So, and then you get into the plain skunk ape, and of course the Yeti, the abominable snowman, and all that as well. My buddy Jim Fowler, when he goes to Russia, all the way to Russia to do a documentary for ABC television to film the Russian brown bear. And why do the guides want to talk about the Russian guides? They wanted to talk about Bigfoot because they had seen something in those mountains that was very similar to what we reported in Northern California, Oregon, Washington, British Columbia, so Alaska. That's funny. Steve says, I heard you mention the park ranger before. He needs to write a book. Well, he does. And there was one thing. When I had my podcast, and all my podcasts are still on the internet, so you can listen to them anytime you want. But I forget what I was going to say. Oh, I remember. When you said referring to Bob Jackson writing a book. Well, the reason he came on my podcast because he was very upset. He had patrolled, in his own words, he says, I've taken parts of bodies, I've taken bodies out of Yellowstone, that people have been killed by grizzly bears. And the reason he was so upset was there was a gal from Sweden that had been killed by a bear. And the authorities told her family that they didn't know whether she had a health issue and just, passed out and the bear came along or something like that and scavenged her, or whether the bear just flat out killed her. And he says they can tell right away what had happened. He told me, in just a matter of fact of voice as you can imagine, he says, Larry, when a grizzly bear kills you for food, when he attacks you, what he's going to do with his tremendous weight, strength, and power, he's going to drive you to the ground. There's no way you can push him off. No way. When you're in that situation. Not unless you have access to a firearm or a knife. No way. And he says the bear, to him, you're no different than a salmon. Because what it will do, while you are still alive, trying to get out from underneath him, he will start eating you at your stomach. And he says you can look at the body and you know this had happened because there will be bruising all over the forearm, where basically the person was fighting and trying to save their life. And he told me that woman from Sweden, that's what had happened to her. That's what had happened to her. And I can remember the grizzly reports from Glacier years and years ago where so many young campers were killed basically in one night. And that's exactly what happened. Matthew says, what the Wendigo isn't a type of Bigfoot. It's a totally different creature. Okay. I'll find out. Though I'm not, here, I'm going to get myself in trouble again because I said at one time, someone asked me, said, what do you know about the dog man? I said, I know nothing about it. I said, I barely have enough time to look at the Bigfoot information, let alone something that's, the dog man. Oran Pendak rock apes, that's what the Vietnamese call Sasquatch, I believe. That's true, Jacqueline. Yeah. The Oran Pendak of Borneo, I don't believe it has the size of what they were seeing in Vietnam. Now, I could be wrong. And I will do research on that. I'll talk to a couple of people. But I don't think it quite has a size. And the Oran Pendak is interesting because John McKinnon, who wrote In Search of the Red Apes, said that he found tracks, and when he made castings and pictures and took them back to London, they knew. He said, we've seen this before, we just can't identify the species. I guess my grizzly bear story has tarnished Shannon Johnson's dinner. Great, I'm eating spaghetti right now. Thanks, Larry. Well, you're welcome. You're very, very welcome. That's about what I felt when I first heard it. Okay, Matthew says the Wendigo is a person who's possessed after committing cannibalism. Oh, well, that's a whole different deal there. That's an interesting point, Matthew. Thank you very, very much. I'm definitely going to be looking into the Wendigo. I am, seriously, I am. That sounds like some interesting, yeah. Wouldn't a bear attack have a lot more blood compared to a scavenger? Probably. Or you're debating what Mr. Jackson said? I wouldn't do that. But I had one friend I told that to, and he's rather portly. I told him, I said, you'd be swimming under that bear for a long time because it'd take a while for it to get to a vital organ and you would pass. You know what I'm saying? But, But the bear attacks, what I refer to as scavenger too, whether the bear scavenged the body, whether someone just died of like a heart attack or some aneurysm or something, just died on the spot, the bear come along and scavenged. That's what I was meaning. And versus whether he just flat out killed a living person. So it really, what it does, it makes you want to go camping in Glacier and Colorado. No, not so much in Colorado. Wyoming and Montana. Though it would be cool. I've always been quite the fan of the grizzly. The grizzly bear's got a raw deal, but they're serious business. Believe me. They had. I had a friend who trained grizzlies, And it was, yes. Not me, says Loretta. She doesn't want to go camping in Glacier or Yellowstone. What was funny in Yellowstone when we would go there, every night the rangers would go through the campsite with their loudspeakers informing everyone that there will be bears moving through the campground tonight. Some of them will be grizzlies. And please do not leave any food out or anything like that. Because, and I thought, wow, that's kind of wild. Getting eaten by a bear is not the best camping trip. No, it wouldn't be. And it'd be easier ways. I'd rather just pass in my sleep. And Alan's just glad he lives east of the Mississippi River. And Loretta says she has camped in Yellowstone. We did too. We went out. My parents went out there when I was a youngster. Well, we didn't really camp. We had a trailer. That's kind of camping. But they would run. But even in the trailer park, they would run. The rangers would come through there with the loudspeakers, telling everybody to, don't leave your food out. I know we went up in Ontario fishing one time, and we left food out, and the bears came in, and those were black bears, and they weren't shy. No, they weren't shy at all, not in the least bit. In fact, after that night, when they basically made a mess of the place, all the guys that were with us, they would not sleep in it. I was the only one that would sleep in a tent after that. And I said, I don't care. Leave me alone. I don't have any food in my tent with me. And black bears aren't known to attack people for food, just to protect their cubs. Or one dummy in Colorado, he runs into a bear that's asleep. Now, what would you do? I have a question for everyone. What would you do if you ran into a bear that was sleeping? I would look at that bear, admire that bear for a moment, and realize that it's going to wake up, and I'll just go the opposite direction. Oh, no, here's what this guy did. He decided to wake it up by poking it with a stick. And they took him out in large plastic bags. Yeah. Here in the Blue Ridge Mountains, keep your food in your truck or in your car if you're camping to keep the bears away. Yeah, you're right, Chris. You're right. Because I'm telling you right now, they got a sniffer. They can't see very well. A lot of times, that's what gets them into trouble. They can't see that great. But that nose is unbelievable. And bears are so intelligent. I had a gentleman, it was a friend of mine, we were talking one time because he'd worked with great apes, and he'd also worked with bears as well. And he said, Larry, he said, what do you think of this? He said, I think bears are as intelligent as the great apes, except they do not have the facial expressions, so they're difficult to read. And that is true. They are difficult to read. That's why they're yeah. You ever heard the saying, don't poke the bear? That's right. And they just don't. I'll give you a little insight to a black bear. No podcast has ever done this. But there's two things you need to watch out for in a black bear if you would ever encounter one. First thing is a clicking sound that the males will make. Kind of like that. That's not good. That means he's upset. And if you hear the clicking sound and if you're in the forest, the best thing is just move the other way. The second thing, if you're close enough to see it, if you see that lip just curl up a little bit right about there on that bear, that's not good either. You need to vacate. And as you vacate, face the bear, be big, walk backwards. Do not run. Because for one thing, you'll never outrun one if it wants to, or if it wants you. And secondly, you don't climb a tree because you'll never outclimb one either. Though more than likely, if it's a big bear, he'll just look at you up in the tree think, oh, that was pretty entertaining, and walk around the tree a couple times and walk back to whatever he was doing. And the person who's in the tree's thinking, I ain't never getting out of this tree. I ain't no way. Famous last words. That's right, Alan. Don't poke the bear. Matthew comes from the Algonquin natives. I have been reading about native myths and stories since I was a child, and I had my own Bigfoot sighting in West Tennessee. Wow, okay. Where legends date back into the 1800s and farther back now. I live in Missouri, home of the Missouri Monster, aka Momo. Yes, my friend Lyle Blackburn has done a lot with that. But I'd classify Momo as an extraterrestrial Bigfoot, as they're the ones with 3 toes, and there are quite a lot of sightings of Bigfoot and around the same time as UFO sightings. You know, that's, I'm not saying, how should I put this? Because I want to encourage everyone that's interested in it to pursue all avenues. But I've said this before because I'm a wildlife educator. If I ever saw one walking off of a spaceship, I'm done. I'm not messing with it no more. That's the end of it. That's the end of it for me. But I've heard that before, though, Matthew. And I've heard of the 3-toed prints. Well, I was in Shepherdstown, West Virginia, when I was giving my Bigfoot talk to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and a couple of men from South Carolina drove up to watch the talk and also show me something. What they basically were is looked like basically looked like a lizard foot, except it was about that big. And you could see every scale. You could see the nails in the front. It was amazing. And they told me that they could hear them ripping off the cypress bark off the trees, cypress trees, and then scream and take off through the swamp. They never saw it, but they found the tracks. What was your scariest event while investigating Bigfoot? That's a tricky one. I'll have to think about that one. Loretta says, I think Bigfoot is a living animal. Dale says, I've never seen a Bigfoot, but I did see a glowing white humanoid walking through the fence once. He hit it with a flashlight and it stumbled faster off into the woods. Me and my friend, Freak, ran inside because we were on the porch. I can imagine. Parents laughed so hard at us. Oh, that's always tough. I know what you're saying, though, Dale. And there's crazy stuff that goes on, but there's so much of it that I just like, the ghost thing. We haven't talked about this too much. On my property, I have Indian burial mounds. They're sacred for whatever. And I can still remember being back on my property, and I was able to see through the trees, and there's a valley between me and my house. And I saw a woman standing next to our outside alligator building. And I can remember just like yesterday. And she looked Native American. She had long, shiny black hair. She's dark complected. And she was in denim. And I see her, so I said, oh, wow, we got company. I better get home. So it took me a little while because I had to go down through the valley, up the hill, blah, blah, blah. It took me, 10 minutes or so. I get there and I says, where'd they go? And my wife said, well, who? I said, well, I saw a gal standing out there by the Gator building. Well, we've had no company. There's not anybody been here. And I thought, And I thought, what did I see? What in the world did I see? You know what we're going to do one night? I've already decided this. One Friday night, I'm going to go back in the woods here because over the years, there's been a number of Sasquatch reports. And I'm going to go back there by those Indian burial mounds by myself. And I'm going to do the broadcast from there. No lights. Maybe just a little light. And we're going to see what turns up. We're going to see if life gets real interesting. Larry, did any of your animals react to that? No. Not that I recall. I don't recall that. So, but I still remember like it was yesterday, and it was strange. Because when my wife, and see the way our home is, we live on the top of a hill and our driveway is long, so nobody can like come up our driveway, sneak up, and do that. So, Laurie says that would be interesting. Yeah, I think it would be too. Ooh, that sounds good. I want to see that. Oh, we're going to do that. I'm still getting over my cancer surgery and my kidney deal. Cool idea, Larry. Alan says, yeah, I think I want to do that. I've been wanting to do it for a long time. Something about sitting in the woods at night. And after you've done it for a while, you hear and see everything. You don't need a light because your eyes will adjust. I'm not saying that send me an invitation to your burial mounds, Chris says. Okay. Have you heard of the men in black coming after people who have had Bigfoot sightings? I saw a TV show in which an episode they mentioned a sighting where a man and his daughter saw a three-toed Bigfoot carrying orbs of light, and I myself have encounters with other cryptids such as the Mothman as well, as had many sightings of and run-ins with paranormal. I'm a magnet for those types of things. Well, that's cool, Matthew. That's interesting. I find it very interesting. Jeff says, have you ever had a threatening encounter? I feel they just may not want you in an area, but also are smart enough to not actually hurt someone. Your fisherman story, notwithstanding, very scary. I think the same thing. You know, they can be so intimidating. So intimidating. You don't even have to see them. I mean, just hear one breathe. When you hear that, that's exactly what I heard. But longer. And that was that definitely got my attention. Chris says, I own Grant Falls Paranormal Investigators Research Team. That's fantastic, Chris. I assume you have a Facebook page. I'd love to check it out. Yeah, that's cool. Like I said, I'm a wildlife educator. I've been teaching about wild animals to young people, well, all ages, for 42 plus years. So the reason I do the Bigfoot, without destroying my credibility, is, well, for one thing, I know they exist. I've done it long enough now, and talked to enough people. What have I discovered? I have no doubt about that. And plus, it gets young people interested in going into the outdoors. I thought Finding Bigfoot was one of the dumbest shows on television, but a lot of kids watched it. They watched it, and they got them interested in going into the outdoors. So I think that's fantastic. I absolutely do. So whatever it takes. Steve says, I enjoy your Friday nights. Well, thank you very much, Steve. That's we'd love to hear more about the mounds. I will tell you, one time, me and a buddy, when we first moved here, we were going to go on an archaeological dig, and we got back there with a shovel, and we stood over that mound, and we decided that would be such bad karma. That would be so bad. That would not be good. So we didn't do anything. Yeah, I know, Steve. It is a joke. It should have been called Not Finding Bigfoot, because it was just silly television. Because at night, during the day, The Sasquatch shares the forest. At night, when guys from TV shows go looking for him, Sasquatch owns the forest. Big difference. Big difference. Well, I'm kind of hoping be back there around the Indian mounds, burial mounds, and sitting there in the woods, and all of a sudden, hear this. Recordings from Puyallup, Washington, that were given to me by John Green. I hear those sounds at night. Shannon's going to work. She's mad at me now. She works all night, and then I try and play that before she has a chance to walk in the dark to her car. But Loretta, that Bigfoot also huffed like a bear when they're upset. Our one did it before it screamed at my daughter. Very loud scream, yes. Steve says, Survival Man Les, can't remember his last name. Had some interesting stuff. I've never watched that. I heard about it a little bit. Did you know the Indian Mounds were there when you acquired your property, or did you discover them after acquiring afterwards? Because my former sister-in-law worked for the forestry in the state of Missouri, and we were hiking the property because I want to know stuff about it. And she said, did you know what you have here? I said, and I'd seen them before. And I said, well, I kind of had an inkling. She said, well, they're Indian mounds, without a doubt. So Jeff says, Finding Bigfoot. I like the witness stories and the reenactments, daytime. Yeah, the night ventures are ridiculous. They're not only ridiculous, they're just dumb. Matthew says, I also believe they bury their dead. I seriously believe they buried my wolf, Shepherd Lobo, because after he died, I drug him out to the woods. I put things on top of him so that scavengers couldn't get at him. Yet when I went back days later and his body was nowhere to be found, so I began looking around and moving the leaves and noticed a spot that looked like as the huge hands had dug a grave. A few years later, and sure enough, his body was burned in that spot. I think that's one reason we haven't found a body. Well, it could be. Could be. Good night, Shannon. Have a great night in employment and work. Watch out going to your car, Jeff says. I will. Well, thank you. Oh my gosh. Oh, we do have fun. We do. Shannon Johnson from Arkansas. She's a trip. She is. You know, we always have a great time here on Friday nights. Have tremendous audiences. I can't believe it. And we try to. Oh, I got to show you my shirt. Oh, there was that. My shirt from Minnesota. I got to show it to you again. Bigfoot saw me, but nobody believes him. I love that shirt. But we're here every Friday night, 10 o'clock. Tell your friends, tell your groups, send me friend requests. And if you have an interesting sighting or report, we're sent to Footer's Forum, Cody Herring. No, those sounds, Chris, were recorded by a gentleman. They would hear them in Washington. And one night, a sheriff decided to walk back in the woods when they'd hear these, and he basically walked into two of them. You know, hi, Chris from Missouri. Nice to have you along. My brother lives in Jefferson City. These shows are wonderful. Thank you for doing it. Well, thank you, Lori. It's fun. I enjoy seeing all you guys. And if you notice, tonight we have new lighting. We do. We got new lighting. So hopefully it gives you, I don't know what, a better picture. I mean, you're looking at my mug all night. What the heck's that all about? Somebody says, I just listened to it. I said, I don't blame you. Anyway, but have a great night. Don't forget, every day, except this Monday, we will not be there, but Tuesday through Friday, 3 o'clock, Animal Art. What else? And 9:30 Animal Stories, and every Friday night, 10 o'clock, right here on Facebook Live, we're talking all about Bigfoot. You're welcome, Jeff. Well, thank you, Jeff, very much. If you had one last outing, where would you go? Table Mountain in Yellowstone National Park. Thank you, Chris. Have a great weekend, everybody. This is Larry Battson, broadcasting from Clinton Falls, Indiana, here on Facebook Live, talking all Bigfoot. God bless you. Hope we see you next Friday night.